Now I would like to play for you a passage from the words of one of the scholars that we need to be warned against. Sadly, one of the most popular figures in the world and one of the most significant speakers on behalf of Islam all over the world. His name is Dr. Yusuf Al Qaradawi. May Allah Ta'ala guide him. May Allah Ta'ala guide him. Aside from propagating numerous falsehoods in Islam, we're going to see here what he says about the Ash'ari creed, and the Salafi creed. The Aqidah of the Salaf versus the Aqidah of the modern day Jahmis posing as Ash'aris from Ahlul Bid'ah. Listen to the words of this evil scholar. The questioner says some people are speaking against the Aqidah of Al-Azhar, which is the Ash'ari creed, represented in America by Nuh Hamim Keller, by, what's his name? The one on the East Coast in Boston, Suhaib Webb.
عقيدة الأزهر الشريف كل الأزهر الشريف كده عقيدته يعني بيطعن في الأشعرية يعني.
He specifies that you don't mean the Aqidah of everybody at Azhar, but you mean the Ash'ari creed. And he laughs a little bit.
لا هو ليس الأزهر وحده أشعريا.
It's not just Al-Azhar that's Ash'ari. Not just the Azhar University that's Ash'ari.
الأمة الإسلامية أشعرية.
The whole Ummah, the whole Islamic nation is Ash'ari.
يعني هذا.
You hear him laughing and you hear the people making takbir and commotion, and you see them, their champion of their false aqidah and their deviation proclaims that this aqidah, this false aqidah of the Ash'aris is the aqidah of the whole Islamic nation. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ.
الأزهر أشعري والزيتونة أشعري وديوبند أشعري وندوة العلماء أشعري.
So he begins to name not only Ash'ari, he names other places of learning and other institutions that they're Ash'ari, and this is Ash'ari and that's Ash'ari.
ومدارس باكستان أشعرية وكل العالم الإسلامي أشعرية.
And every place in the Islamic world is Ash'ari. That's what he says. Lying. False speech. فسقت العلماء. Evil scholars that seek to promote innovation and do away with correct guidance from Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
السلفيين مجموعة صغيرة حتى يعني إذا قلنا السعودية ليس كل السعودية سلفيين.
He says that Salafis are just little in number. Salafis are just a little group, just in Saudi Arabia. And even in Saudi Arabia, they're not all Salafis.
الحجازيين غير النجديين غير المنطقة الشرقية.
He mentions that there are people on the west coast, in the Hijaz, Mecca and Medina and those areas that are on different beliefs than the people in Najd, in the eastern region. Then he mentions another eastern region, saying that they have different beliefs and not all of them are Salafis.
منطقة جيزان وكذا فإذا خدنا بالأغلبية أغلبية الأمة.
He said, if you want to talk about the majority, then the majority of this whole ummah is Ash'ari. The whole majority of this ummah is Ash'ari. Subhanallah. Subhanallah. You need now to prepare yourself to handle this claim. Or actually, those of you who are familiar with correct resources, both in print and on the internet, you know you have at your fingertips that which you can arm yourself against this false claim, this lie, this fabrication against the religion of Islam. You have in your hands, in the published world of information, you have the book Al-Qawa'id Al-Muthla. Al-Qawa'id Al-Muthla, Exemplary Principles. This book was published about 10 years ago with its first printing by Troyd Publications in Canada. Jazahumallahu khairan. And I'd like to read to you what has been available for the last 10 years in print from the near the end of the book, or the 5th section of the book. The author of this tremendous book, Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymeen, rahimahullah ta'ala, refutes this very doubt, this very attempt to legitimize bid'ah in the religion of Islam. He refutes it easily and clearly. And all of those who've benefited from this book, then they see that the statement of Yusuf Al Qaradawi is miskeen. It doesn't provide any proof for the correctness of his deviance. It's just playing with the minds of the people who don't have any intellect to return to the words of their scholars and to return to the aqidah of the book and the sunnah and to reject the aqidah, even if it's the aqidah of Al-Azhar, to reject the aqidah that opposes the way of the Salaf as-Salih. A question is posed and answered on page number 191 of this tremendously important resource that you should have. The first question: how could the madhab of the Ash'aris be false while it has been said that they make up 95% of the Muslim population? That's the question that the author poses, rahimahullah, and he says, the response, and I'm reading directly from the English publication, the English translation of Al-Qawa'id Al-Muthla. The response: we do not agree that the Ash'aris make up this much of the Muslim population in light of all the existing sects out there. This claim needs to be substantiated with evidence of a proper and precise count. Even if we accepted that they make up this amount, or even more, this would not mean that they are protected from error by way of it, since it is the consensus of all the Muslims that protects us from error, not just the agreement of the majority of them. Furthermore, it is established that the Muslims were united a long time ago on the opposite of what the people of Ta'wil are upon, meaning the Ash'aris. The righteous Salaf are the very core of this nation. They were the companions, the very best generation, their students who followed them in righteousness, and the Imams of guidance after them. They were all united on the affirmation of the names and attributes that Allah had affirmed for Himself, and what His Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, had affirmed for him. They also agreed that the texts are to be understood, meaning the texts of the book and the sunnah, are to be understood according to their apparent meanings, that are befitting for Allah the Exalted, without tahrif, distortion, or ta'atil, negation, or takyif, seeking after their specific details, or tamthil, likening them to the attributes of the creation. They were the best generations due to the statement of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and their consensus on an issue is a binding proof, since it represents the true understanding and application of the book and the sunnah. Proofs of their consensus on this issue have been presented in the fourth principle of section 4, principles concerning the textual evidences for Allah's names and attributes, and you can review section 3.4 of the book for more on that. Furthermore, a few pages later, on page 207, our Shaykh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymin, rahimahullah ta'ala, says, not 207, sorry, but page 203. He says, he poses another question, and he answers it to help you and me be prepared for the spread of innovation by the likes of Dr. Yusuf Al Qaradawi and all of those who speak with falsehood like him. The question posed: how could the madhab of the Ash'aris be false while so-and-so and so-and-so are Ash'ari scholars? And how could their madhab be wrong while they are known for their sincerity to Allah, His book, His messenger, the leaders of the Muslims and the common folk? Notice, Dr. Yusuf Al Qaradawi uses to strengthen his stance, to support his innovation in belief that this place and that place and these people, they're all upon the madhab of the Ash'aris. The response: this can be answered from two angles, says our Shaykh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymin. Firstly, the truth is not to be judged based on people. Rather, the people are to be judged based on the truth. This is the correct way to measure the affairs, even when the status and position of some people will cause their statements to be accepted more easily. This is similar to how we accept the reports of a reliable person and how we withhold from accepting an openly disobedient person's reports. However, this is not the rule for each and every affair, as a man is only a human being. He cannot have complete knowledge, nor can he have a firm understanding of all things. Even though he may be a religious man or a person of good character, his lack of knowledge or proper understanding may lead him away from the correct position on some issues, based on the amount of information he is missing or the weakness of his understanding. Or he may have been raised in a place where a certain way or madhab is widespread. Thus he is not able to know about anything else and believes that his is the correct position. Secondly, if we compare the scholars of the Ash'aris with the scholars who followed the way of the Salaf, then we would find that those upon the way of the Salaf were more outstanding, greater, more rightly guided, and more understanding, more upstanding than those who took the way of the Ash'aris. The Imams of the 4 different madhabs, for example, were not upon the way of the Ash'aris. Then if you were to go back to those who came before the Imams, the Tabi'un, you would not find them upon the way of the Ash'aris either. And if you went beyond that to the time of the companions and the 4 rightly guided caliphs, you would not find even a hint of what the Ash'aris are saying about the names of Allah, the Exalted, and His attributes. Nor would you find any of their other ideas that have caused them to stray from the way of the Salaf. We cannot dispute the fact that some of the scholars who ascribed to the way of the Ash'aris put forth truthful work for Islam and defended the religion, aiding the book of Allah and the Sunnah of His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam by their recording of the narrations and their contributions to the different sciences of Islam, being persistent in bringing benefit to the Muslims and guiding them. However, this does not mean that they were protected from error or that we must accept their every statement, nor does it prevent us from exposing their mistakes and refuting them, since this clarifies the truth for the people and guides them. Nor can we dispute that some of them had good intentions in the positions they took, and that the truth was not clear to them in those affairs. However, this is not a reason for us to accept their mistakes, simply because they had good intentions in what they said. Rather, their statements must correspond with Allah's legislation. We are obliged to reject their statements if they do not, no matter who they were, due to the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Man amila amalan laysa alayhi amruna fahuwa radd." Whoever does something that is not in accordance with our affair, will have it rejected. Furthermore, our Shaykh concludes here, if he was well known for his sincerity and truthfulness in seeking after the truth, then we can make an excuse for him regarding this mistake of his. However, or otherwise, he is to be treated according to his evil motives and according to his actions and statements that contradict the religion. That ends my reading from these 2 selections from this very important resource, Al-Qawa'id Al-Muthla, Exemplary Principles. Since the call of the Ash'aris is widespread, while we won't concede that it is as widespread as they would claim, while it does have its presence in the English language, then average, everyday Muslims should arm themselves with knowledge of that evil, knowledge of their foundations, knowledge of their call, knowledge of their invitations, how they invite, the kind of statements they make, the kind of doubts they spread, and their responses from the scholars to those doubts. That is vitally important, as our Salaf used to learn evil things, learn about them so as not to fall into them. And they used to say, whoever doesn't learn about evil things, meaning bad aqidas, corrupt beliefs, incorrect practices, and then the proper stance in Islam on them. Whoever doesn't learn those things, naturally, logically, and in reality, he will fall into those things. If you love Allah and you want to thank Him for the guidance that He has bestowed upon you, then ihris, be vigilant, take care of this guidance. Don't leave yourself open to straying by remaining ignorant of the Ash'ari creed or the other calls to innovation that we find that have reached us in the English language. And this is a very dangerous affair, because as people who live in the West, people who live in America and places where they have a principle of freedom of speech, and they allow every person who has an opinion, an idea, a religion, a sect, a branch of a sect in a religion, whoever has any idea, any religion, any concept they want to promote, then they have every right to promote it. And they have every right to make a platform for themselves. And they have every right to openly invite all of the people to their beliefs. How much more do the people in the West have to prepare themselves against these odds, against these circumstances, than the people who live in the Muslim lands? In the Muslim lands, there are scholars refuting the calls to innovation in the newspapers, on the internet, on the tongues of the people in the neighborhoods. Walhamdulillah, in the masjids. And some Muslim countries are better than others in this regard. However, even in places like Egypt, where people are freer to say what they want and to promote things that they could not promote in other countries, there is still not an unlimited chance for anyone to say whatever they wanted. They will still find Muslims who have some knowledge, Muslims who have some respect for the religion of Islam, will stand up to refute them. But in America, in the West in general, you find that the calls become protected by law. The kuffar will defend a person who wants to invite you to worship a saint and call it Islam. The law will defend him. The kafirs will intercede and defend his right to propagate his ideas. So how much more do you, the Muslim man or woman living in the West, living in America and places like that, how much more do you need to prepare yourself to defend yourself in this war of ideology that is going on? Don't take it lightly. I'd like to guide you now to something, by Allah's permission, that would aid you very much in this regard. And it is a website that is a very special and well-organized website, a very focused website on the issue of the Asharites and their beliefs and their propagation, or those who are calling themselves Asharites in this day and time. And you will find that many of those who refer to themselves as Asharites, that they in fact carry the beliefs, or many of the beliefs, of the Jahmiyyah and the more severely deviant cults that came before them. And this website is called Asharites.com. www.asharis.com. Asharites.com. An exemplary website with many articles, big focus on the speech of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah in refuting the people of Ta'wil, the Ash'aris, their foundations, their claims, and their shubuhat and their doubts. Excellent resource. So I advise you, my brothers and sisters in the West, with two tremendous resources that you can use to arm yourself and protect yourself from this call, the call to the Ash'ari cult. It is the book Exemplary, or they are, firstly, the book Exemplary Principles, a study of it from beginning to end, by Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymeen. And secondly, the online resource on the net, www.asharis.com. هذا والله أعلم وصل اللهم وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.